dying just to see you.
Hello, hello. This is myself, Oscar from Steady Decline, and my good friend Ciaran, who has almost become Steady Decline at this stage. He started working with us and recorded our first song, and has been working on a few songs since, and stepped up, played bass for us live, and I've been, I suppose, working with him for just over a year, doing music videos for his band, Like Grey. We're just going to go through a little session breakdown of Start Over because I've enjoyed watching other people's session breakdowns, and I'm always loving trying to get my head around Logic and asking Ciaran multiple questions during our late night sessions up in the studio above. So welcome, Ciaran, and thank you for your time and also for your skills and knowledge that you give me on this. I don't know why I sound like I'm doing a podcast.
Yeah, I was just about to say, I really like your radio voice.
Yeah, well, it's better than my singing voice. Can you put a bit of auto-tune on it?
No, we'll get to hear plenty of that in a sec.
Jack, unfortunately, cannot be here because, first of all, I didn't really invite him, and second of all, he's busy probably writing JJA songs, but he'll be on the next one because the next song is a sad one, and I'm hoping to do one of these, depending on if you people of the internet actually care about this, but hopefully do one for all of them because... Yeah, just because we need content. We played one gig in 7 years nearly. We only really have 2 members up until a while ago. There's only so many photos of the two of us that we can take in the studio where it starts looking the same. So we need content. This is fun to do for me, and I hope you get something from it. And it's just cool. I love seeing breakdowns of other band songs because I get to hear these parts that I never would have picked up on before, but also just I don't know, just seeing how much actually goes into all this sort of stuff. You can even see here straight away, my mind's a bit blown. You see track 1 there, and then underneath it says 9. And like when you think about it, there's 8 other tracks, I guess, within that drum stack. Is that what they call them these days?
Yeah, so it's a stack. So altogether, not including the bus tracks, you've got 168.
Is that normal? As for yourself,
yeah, no,
would you have?
Yeah, no, that's definitely kind of normal. Like even with Jack stuff, generally get to about 200. Yeah, and with my own stuff, generally, yeah, about the same to be fair, about 160 roughly. You know, depends on the
I want
song.
to even quickly, I guess, even talk about what program you're using here, like not getting into major details, but just for anyone who...
Yeah. So we're using Logic Pro. It is... Unfortunately for all you Windows people, it's a Mac only program. I've been using it for years. I think when I first started using it, it was Logic 9, and it was a really ugly looking blue thing. But yeah, it's gotten a lot better over the years.
And again, probably like anything, this is just one of many tools. I've used a few over the years. This one, again, I'm an Apple fanboy. I think Ciaran is too. He used to work for them, but it's just the one that I like the most. I don't know if it's user face or because I used GarageBand before, which is like its baby version.
That's definitely like a big plus for a lot of people who come from GarageBand. Is like GarageBand is literally like baby Logic, and if you get used to using GarageBand, then it's such an easy transition over to Logic. I mean, there's a lot of things to learn, but it's definitely a lot nicer than just opening up like Pro Tools or something for the first time. It's a bit daunting, I suppose. But yeah, no, I don't know why I particularly gravitate towards Logic. It's probably again because of GarageBand, but yeah, I've definitely tried a lot over the years.
It's a cheap enough price from what I've seen. It's what, 200, maybe 300 euro.
If you're a student, I know you can get like a student pack, and it comes with like what's it called, Final Cut, Logic, and compressor or whatever it is for like 299 euros. But even Logic on his own, I think it's about 199, something like that. But that's a once-off payment, whereas like the likes of Pro Tools now, they they don't even have a perpetual license anymore. It's all subscription, which is a bit annoying. But
I know we're going through with my other band, Versa. The other guitarist, Ciaran, has just got into some kind of home recording setup. He got a little Focusrite, and we're just kind of bouncing demos off it back and forth. But Connor uses Pro Tools, and we were saying it'd be handy if we all just use the same DAW just to make things a little bit easier for like just throwing back demos that we can multi-track then. But
and I mean, like, there's nothing wrong with any DAW. They all do the exact same thing, and there's a lot of debate like about whether one DAW is better than the other. But like as far as sound quality goes, but they're actually all the exact same. There is no difference. People have tried to like find these small little details, but it doesn't exist. It's all in their mind.
all right, well, that's enough upping up Logic, and we'll get our 10% discount or 10% commission from all the sales that we get from it. But yeah, no, it's for me, it's handy because I've been using it for years. Some of the old studios that I used to record in, and they'd send me the actual Logic files that I'd be able to look through afterwards, and I've done all my demos on it. So when I found out you were using it, and then you've been able to send me the session files that I can look back through and solo stuff, and
Again, that is the handiest thing. I'm finding more and more people using Logic now, and like they'll just send me their session rather than me having to export all the stems and or multi tracks and things like that. Just makes it easier.
definitely. Cool. Well, I guess, yeah, we've kind of talked about how many tracks you got going. I don't want to even just talk about the drums there in itself. I know when we started the recording process upstairs, it was a cool thing for me because I had older versions of this, which I'm going to probably hopefully share at the very end of this too. I have demos from 2015 of acoustic ones of me humming along upstairs in my bedroom in my mom's house, kind of just quietly singing the song. So we have some kind of cool older versions, and I think I actually have the Logic files of those, which I might open.
Really?
But you have obviously the drums here, and going back to what I was starting with, we did it all with MIDI drums first upstairs because you're able to just tap along on your hands. You're obviously a drummer as well, which makes things a lot easier for recording with you.
I think as well for just your guys' sake, like a lot of people find a click a lot more stressful than a drum kit, I suppose, because you're so familiar with playing to a drum kit. That I think it just worked, and as well, having that in MIDI first is so much nicer because you get to hear it kind of come together a lot quicker than, oh yeah, it's just guitars stacking on top of each other.
Yeah, so you obviously did everything MIDI first, and we recorded along to that that night, and then what was it, a few weeks or a week or so later, you got Alan from Light Grey and now playing with Steady as well to track the drums out in your house, was it?
Yeah, so we set up. Well, I'd sent Alan the rough session, so I sent him the MIDI drums on its own. I sent him the guitars on their own and click track on its own, so he could like practice and stuff. And then we brought him around. We didn't actually use as many microphones on the kit as I remember from looking at it, but you see, I have a habit of consolidating things when I don't need them to be doubled. So for example, the overheads, that's actually a stereo pair, so there's two microphones on that one track.
Any reason for doing that? Just to save a bit of RAM?
Yeah, well, one is the CPU, I suppose, especially when you're working with so many tracks, but also it just means there's a lot less like processing. It means I can put all these plugins on the one track rather than all these plugins on two tracks.
Cool. You want to even just play the drums for a second and see what they kind of sound like on their own?
Yeah, totally.
Cool. You can already hear that it sounds huge. Is there any special tips you kind of go back to, or is it just would you kind of go to your normal of setting up a drum kit the same every time, or would you just try play something new?
With this, we definitely went familiar, I think, because I think we just wanted to get done like as quick as possible because we were excited. But generally I like to mess around. But what I do, especially with Alan, it's so great having him around because normally if I'm messing around with mic placements by myself, I have to set up all the audio. I have to run out to the other room, put all the mics where I want them. Well, guess where I want them really. play myself and then run back to hear how it sounds. And if one thing's off, it's like, oh shit, I have to go again. Whereas having, Alan, it's like, oh, just lift the, I don't know, the tom mic back like an inch or something like that. But
At least you get your steps in though when you're doing it by yourself.
that's it, yeah. But with Alan, I have him over for specific days just to mess around with mic techniques and like just try and learn a bit more about it and figure out how to make it sound a bit better.
I think one of the coolest things straight off the bat for me was when we started working with you. We recorded all the music, I'm pretty sure all the guitars and everything, upstairs in my like office studio space through your computer, and it was just like handy, first of all, for me because I didn't have to fucking move anywhere, but also so I don't know, reassuring, and just like I kept going back to you. I think you said it a few times myself. I'm so comfortable in my own surroundings, knowing where anything was, if I wanted to just pick up another guitar or just relax. There was no stress at the whole time. We were just like, if we wanted to do multiple takes on guitars or keep adding stuff, because we were kind of writing as recording, even though the song had been recorded a few times in the past and like bits like that. But it was just so handy, and just knowing that like you just brought your iMac up and that you can get such cool recordings out of such a like a simple. I know that obviously there's a lot of gear that goes into it, mic wise and plugins, but a simple, as in brackets, setup in terms of just bringing your computer up to here, and it's just such a cool thing to see. And like even the drum kit sounds you get, you don't have to nowadays go into a massive studio anymore. Obviously, if your budget allows it, and if you can obviously sometimes get better sounds, but sometimes home studio sound actually works better for the song that's working on it.
Yeah, you can get pretty damn good sounds from home now, and like you said, I feel like that's becoming more and more of a thing. I feel like at some stage, I don't know, in some generation's time, younger people won't want to go to studios, or they won't feel comfortable going to studios, and I totally get that, because I've only been to a couple of studios, and like I can do as many vocal takes as I want at home, and I'm not stressing about getting it right because we've only got 2 hours left.
I think that's my thing, from being in, like, I've been in quite a few studios, especially in Ireland, over the many years of playing in lots of different bands, and like I've never not felt comfortable in the studios in terms of like the producer or the engineer or just the studio itself. It's always just down to, we are spending more money than we have in our banks to record these songs that aren't ever going to make us any money, and we're rushing for time. Like I remember with All It's Worth, we did 10 songs, whatever, doubling up all the like rhythms, leads, bass and drums in a day and a half, and like I listen back to them and they sound sloppy because they were sloppy because we were rushing them. Whereas with this, we spent, I don't know, maybe a full day doing all the music and a bit of vocals, and then obviously went off the drums. But like we were working late until the night, but we didn't have to start at 10 a.m. either. We started when we came, and everyone was ready to do so. So I think from that side, it's just been, that's probably been the handiest, and I think that's where I've got my best performances vocally or guitars, just from being comfortable.
I mean, as well, like even I know it's not out yet, but with the track we were just working on, the amount of time we spent just on really small details with the vocals, being able to take your time with that makes such a difference, because like even back in the days of like Queen and stuff, they had these massive budgets behind them, and they could spend the time getting these perfect vocal takes, whereas I feel like it's nice now that that's kind of flipping back on itself, except obviously it's from a home studio perspective rather than a recording studio.
Yeah, if you look at that Blink self-titled album, I always remember NoFX or Fat Mike saying something like, it took them a year to come up with that. Like, it is kind of funny that it was a whole, like, that in itself, I think, is a masterpiece in like a pop punk kind of world sense. But like, yeah, they had a year to work on it. They were like, you watch that documentary of those bits on YouTube, and like you can see they're just actually writing and playing around and like just taking that time to get the songs to as amazing as they sounded. Whereas you hear bands like, I think it was one of the Sum 41 or even one of the early Blink ones, they had to get like a whole album done over like 2 days in a weekend or whatever. And it's like, sometimes that can actually spark some sort of magic, but I think most of the time when we're rushed, it doesn't usually get our best stuff out, from my point anyway. So
and I mean, like having a deadline is good, because you're pushing yourself a little bit, but also not stressing about it is like so much better. But yeah, I think as well, like especially in the the world we live in right now, I think no one, well, me personally, I think that no one has any excuse not to be able to at least record a demo themselves. Because if you can go into a studio with a demo, that's like half the work for the engineer or the mix engineer, um, because they know kind of what you're after in some way, even if it's to you doesn't sound great. The engineer will then get a rough grasp of what you want to be able to hear. You know.
Yeah, I can't remember if it was you when we were on the Crown the King podcast or myself when we were chatting about, especially the last 2 years, all musicians. And like, this is where like Cian from Versive, he didn't have recording equipment before, and he's bought a Keelan bought a Focusrite for doing vocal demos at home. I think Doyler probably has one, but other than that, we all have a decent enough home recording kit, and it makes
And I
sense
mean,
because you can write stuff, record stuff, but then yeah, you bring your demo in and you're hopefully playing along to a click, and you're a lot tighter, so you're not wasting your time in the studio then if you go to a studio. But also, as you said, you bring the demo and you show it to the producer and they put it up on the timeline like you did, and that way you know you haven't missed a part or you haven't doubled up on a chorus or anything like that.
Because as well, then the producer can get templates ready and like he knows what's actually in the session. But yeah, with like the technology, you know, you can get an interface now for about €30, and technology in that is 10 times better than, you know, a lot of things they had in the 80s. So like you can already get studio ready stuff with something as cheap as that, you know, like the Focusrites are so good. For like, they're such a bang for buck. Yeah, I definitely think everyone should at the very least learn how to just record a track, even if it's just an acoustic guitar and a vocal.
Even if it's like just the band having one between them and they can pass around the room or the thing. Because yeah, like I have, and I'm one of those people that just keeps everything. I have demos from, as I was saying, 2015, where I would have had my Behringer or maybe a Focusrite thing at the time, and it's just recording guitar, and I probably just like picked up the mic off my thing, just picking it up off my laptop and then singing into my laptop mic. But it was a better demo to send to Jack at the time to say, this is what the vocal melody's like or whatever. So,
and especially in the world of working online, like even the two of us right now, we're completely separate. Like we're completely separate. You're halfway across the country, like, or even the whole way across the country. Yet you're able to hear exactly what I'm hearing. You're able to see what I'm seeing. You know, it's just great.
But yeah, before we even jump into the song a bit more, how has that been for the last year for you, or 2 years? I know you did a lot of remote recording, first of all, with Jack, but even just going through mixes and some masters with me, because obviously it'd be ideal to be in your studio with you, listen through your speakers, but at the same time, I don't drive and I'm lazy. But also, it's just handier to like be able to do that, and with lockdowns and all that sort of stuff. How was that for you? Like,
yeah, no, really, to be honest, really good. You know, I'm so used to it. You know, I feel like I've done, because to be fair, I've only really properly started doing work with other artists, you know, in the last, since lockdown started, I suppose. I had done a few like smaller little projects, but definitely I feel like, and again, just reverting back to people being able to record themselves, the fact that they can send me something, and like, not to like toot my own horn, but like I do find that I'm able to take a lot of people's stuff and like just branch it out a little bit more than they originally had it. But yeah, no, I like working remotely. It's definitely fun. I get to work with more people, which is more exciting, other than like sticking to just what's around Galway, you know?
Yeah, and I know even with working with Jack, you'd said like sometimes you might do a 2 or 3 hour call, but it means that you can work with like 2 or 3 different people throughout the day if time zones and things work, and that way.
And I mean, I've been like, if it weren't for working remotely, you know, I wouldn't have got to work on tracks with the likes of like Smart Death or with Sammy from Waster. You know, I wouldn't have got to touch those things, because you know they're all in America or UK. Yeah, it's nice. It's nice to be able to kind of branch out, I suppose.
Cool. So I guess we looked at drums. What is underneath this? What's this percussion track? I don't think I've ever even.
Oh yeah, so this is actually, you can't really hear this in the original mix, but
this is your djembe solo, is it?
yeah, exactly. So it's literally just what's the word? Tambourine. Now it's like super quiet, but when you add it to what's happening on the drums, I don't know, it just gives it a bit more kind of a flow rather than just straight drum hits, you know. I'll play it with and without. You might not notice too much of a difference over video, but
Yeah, you can definitely hear when you pull it up and down a lot easier, and then you start to hyper focus on it. Or I do anyway.
yeah, that's it as well. I mean, it's fairly low down there because I think, from what I remember anyway, when the rest of the stuff is there, it was kind of overpowering, but it felt empty without it, I think. Yeah, that's all the drums and percussion. So with the drums, I don't know who cares about it, but so everything goes up to a bus. So basically everything comes into one track so that I can raise it or lower it, whichever. And on there, I've got a bunch of processing that I normally use. That is literally my entire drum sound, like when I play it. Like, it just gives it a massive lift, I suppose. Sounds kind of dull without it.
Yeah, I've always been kind of intrigued by the bus thing. I like, because I've only ever like, I wouldn't even say self-taught myself because I don't really know much about it apart from how to do my little demos. But like when I started seeing buses, I think Marty was even talking about one on his anchor thing, his track breakdown, and it's like it makes so much sense as opposed to like I'm thinking from the video editing side of things where you put an effect on every single track, and then if you want to change it slightly, it has to be altered on them all. But if you, it's like in video editing, it's like an adjustment layer that you just put on one thing and then everything below that. But I need to get my head around it a bit more because it makes sense, but it's just something that I've never done yet, so I'm a little bit afraid.
Yeah, it's such a handy kind of tool because I mean, again, with the whole effects thing, you can put one effect over, like for example, a reverb. If you go putting reverbs on every single track, you're going to end up with, well, especially with CPU, you're going to end up using a load of that. So rather than using a reverb on every single track that doesn't need to have, or it's the same, you can bus it and dial in the amount of reverb that's going to it. But in this case, the buses that I'm using, they're more mixed buses. So for example, all the drums comes to one track, all the bass guitars comes to one track, rhythm, so on. And it just means that from here, I can actually mix it coming into the master. So yeah, it's really confusing, but there's tracks going into buses, but then buses going into a big bus.
My son would love to see his transport bad at the minute. Even just quickly going back to where did you, like, I know you're not self-taught, but I suppose where did you go to college, and did you find that that's essential for this, or are you kind of self-taught half as well? Or
I wouldn't say that, well, I have gone to college for this, but I wouldn't say that the college taught me all of this. Like I was recording my own stuff when I was about, I want to say 11, 12. So I figured out how to get a mixing desk and send it out into the, do you remember on laptops there used to be a jack specifically for a microphone?
For anyone listening to this and not watching, that's not jack right, a jack as in yeah,
like an aux cable or whatever. But yeah, I used to go out of the mixing desk into the aux cable, but then I had like I think it was like a crack or something of Adobe Audition, and I didn't know that was, you know, what it was for, but just from messing around constantly, I was figuring out how to send things to this effect and, you know, mess with that. And I kept doing it and kept doing it. And by the time I got to transition year, I kind of figured out that that is literally what I want to do. So I decided that I would go to the UK and study. It wasn't specifically sound engineering, it was more kind of performance and stuff like that, but there was a bit of that on it. We used Logic there. Actually, before that, I did work experience in a studio. Absolutely loved it, even though I had no idea about any of the other things. And then when I finished college in the UK, I decided to come over here and do a degree in it. And back to your second question, yes, like, is it kind of worth it for this kind of stuff? I think, like, my attitude towards college is that it gives you the opportunity to do this stuff every day constantly. It's not so much that you're going to learn everything you know from it. I just think that it gives you the time and the space to focus on it and figure stuff out for yourself. Like I want to say like 90% of what I know has come from either YouTube or just general messing around, you know?
Yeah, I think that's one of the huge parts. I remember even, I think, talking to Marty when I was talking about demoing and it's, or trying to record myself before I started working with you. And it was like, it's just one of those things that, like, if it sounds right to you, it doesn't matter if you've used the wrong mic or the wrong
Yeah,
EQ or
no,
anything. If
exactly.
it sounds right, it sounds right.
There was a good I think I saw it on TikTok or something. There was a guy talking about his college tutor, and he said, he held up a microphone. And that microphone is typically used for kick drums, and he held it up and he said, if I was to use this on a vocal, what would it sound like? And everyone was like, oh, it sounded really like boxy and like low end and stuff like that. He was like, no, it sounded like a vocal. It's just about, how you work that into whatever, like especially with all the, in the 80s, 90s, things like that, the technology wasn't that good, but they made do with the limitations that they had, and even like Beatles and stuff like that, they figured out all this stuff, which we now look back on and go, oh, that was so good. But back then they were going like, oh, this is a piece of garbage.
But yeah, you were saying just about YouTube. Is there anyone that, like, any particular channels that you'd follow?
Oh God, there's so many. See, the thing is I think the toughest thing about learning from YouTube is there's so much information. It's hard to know what the correct information is. And I mean, I don't think everyone has the answers, but I find certain tips or certain tricks that helped me, I suppose. But again, like I said, like the majority of it came from just messing around and trying to get things to sound the same as how, other songs were. And like that's definitely a technique that I still use today, is like I'll have a reference track and I will try get it as close to that as possible. You'll actually see here there's a plugin called Tonal Balance, and what I do in this is I send a reference track through it, and basically what that does is it scans it and it figures out where the kind of frequency spectrum is. And so if I play all this together, you'll see this line here will perfectly go inside of this line. And that means that I've got the frequency spectrum the exact same as, well, not the exact same, but as close as I can to the other track. And like, for example, if this is down here, I can tell that I need to add more bass just to push it up into here and so on. But you can solo each bit to hear where it's not hitting the right spots, I suppose. But
remember what our reference track is? Because I don't.
Yeah, I think it was.
I'm gonna say Knuckle Pucker's Story So Far or something, is it?
Like Pacific's track.
Ah, yes.
It was Control My Sanity by Like Pacific.
Cool.
Which is, when I'm listening to just the drums there a second ago, like the drums just sound really like roomy. Like there's a lot of reverb and snap off the snare. I can definitely hear kind of how close it was to the original. As well, just in case you're interested, this here is MIDI, but because I didn't record a room mic, which I usually do, I don't really know why I didn't. Actually, I'm pretty sure I did, but I just don't think I used it. I actually made a room mic out of MIDI, so I could blend it in. So if I add things on top of this now. Yeah.
Cool.
Just gives me more things to kind of make it sound closer to the reference.
Yeah, and I remember we were working with Aidan Cunningham before, he was kind of saying anytime he records a band, he tries to, like, not every single time, I'm sure he can't forever, but he tries something different a little bit. I remember him putting a feckin' mic in a hose near the drum kit or something like that.
Yeah.
Would you...
There's a producer called... I can't think of her name.
It's Aidan Cunningham, I just said.
But she's a really, really good producer. She actually, I'm pretty sure she has the world record for like the biggest mic collection or something.
Oh, I think I came across that on YouTube or Instagram a
Yeah,
while
I
back.
think
Yeah.
it's Sylvia Massey. I think that's her name.
Okay.
Um, and she actually, I'm pretty sure, came up with that hose thing, and it kind of gives this big reverb sound. Such a cool technique.
And but like, do you every time you go into a song, do you go, I have to try something different, or it just depends on time,
Uh,
song, and
it depends. Like I said, I generally have days where I'll mess around with Alan on just drum sounds. We actually made a snare sample pack recently,
cool.
which I'll probably shoot over to. But I think the coolest kind of experiment I did once was I took do you know the microphone that comes with the Focusrites?
Yeah, I can picture it because Keane
It's
just
like
got
a
one here
little
now.
red thing. I might have it here somewhere, but it's not the best sounding microphone. But we took a really long cable and put it like up the stairs. I think we did that for Loser for Light Grey track, and it just sounds like huge. I don't know quite what it's doing, but as soon as you take it away, the drums just sound really like small.
But it's that thing that we were saying. It just sounds right, so you keep it in, and you don't even have to know why. It just works.
Exactly, yeah. And I mean, all this stuff's relative. It's just whatever you think is,
Yeah.
right. Now the thing is, I think I heard someone say recently, it's like there's no rules to this stuff, but there is, public perception, I suppose.
Guidelines almost, or
Not even guidelines. It's like, whatever's popular in the charts or whatever. Unfortunately, that's kind of your aim sometimes, but it doesn't necessarily mean that if you don't do that, your mix is bad.
cool. All right, so we've kind of gone through most percussion. It looks like you have that shakery tambourine going through the choruses and the end as well. Is that
Yeah, so because everything kind of dips out for the verses, just to make the choruses sound bigger, I suppose. And as well, I've also got these kind of risers just to make it sound bigger. And then on the end here, I have something I use on pretty much most tracks. It's like a sub drop. Now, again, it's something that you don't really hear, but once it smacks into that last chorus,
it makes me look like Nicki Minaj?
yeah, super bass. But yeah, we're onto bass. So yeah, we went through drums. So the bass, as you know, we recorded on your lovely Mark Hoppusy bass, which is the best.
And not for sale.
Not for sale. I think my favorite thing about that bass is that I really don't have to do a lot of work to make it sound good. Like you can see here, I've got like 2 plugins on it.
And they're auto tune and keeping track of time.
Yeah, totally. Actually, what I've got on there is okay. It's frozen right now, but I have this plugin. To be honest, I don't quite know what it does. I think it's like a limiter compressor sort of thing, but it's made by Joey Sturgis, and it is the best thing that's ever happened to me as far as bass guitars go because I get the sound I'm looking for every single time.
And just we use a Kemper on the guitars, but for the bass, you just went DI straight into your, what's that thing called?
So yeah, we did bass guitar DI into. So I got an Apollo Twin interface. So it's like Focusrite, but like the high end, I suppose.
Okay.
Now, again, there's nothing wrong with having a Focusrite. It's just that this is what I use, I suppose.
Yeah. So we're just going straight into that, and then that plugin is making it sound as it does.
Well, like your bass sounds so good, like regardless. And then this just gives it a little bit extra grit. If I unfreeze it, I should be able to get up. Yeah. So
even just before you play that, what so going through with your settings, would you normally do most of your, I'm just going to call them effects from lack of knowledge, I suppose through your computer as opposed to like pedals, or would it be a bit of both, or does it like vary?
I like to have the DIs, which I'll get to with the guitars. I like to have the DIs as well as the whatever someone wants to use. Like if they want to use pedals, fair enough. But there's pedals galore in this.
And they're just essentially virtual pedals that you have full control
Yeah,
over.
exactly. And I mean there is literal pedals. Like for example, the guitar sim I'm using is called STL Tones, and that is like the closest thing to a Kemper that you can get as far as a plugin goes. I'm pretty sure they make Kemper packs.
And sorry, just for anyone I guess who doesn't know, DI, is that just direct interface or direct input?
So it's direct. Some people say injection. Some people say
I like
input.
that. Injection
Direct
sounds way cooler. It sounds like you've already made our
But
song
yeah,
metal.
it's pretty much just the what's the word? The line level or the line sound coming straight out of the bass. So there's no amplifier. There's no effects or anything like that. So it's just the raw track.
Sorry, so you were just talking about the bass. I suppose even just play a bit and let's just see how it sounds and hear how it sounds.
What I'll do actually is I'll turn off the effects here, just so you can hear it. Because like realistically, this isn't doing a massive load. It's just the bass just sounds good anyway. And then I'll switch on these. So realistically, all this is doing is it's compressing it a little bit or limiting. But then down here you've got like grit settings, so it's pretty much just distortion. So all I've added is some distortion over the top of it. So the bass thing you're talking about is right there. So there's a little bass.
Don't show them that I had to do a little take on it.
Sounds super smooth though. It sounds like it's one thing.
I think if anything, it's actually cool to show that, because we only like just. I'm a bassist originally, but it's cool to show that like we were writing it as it was going, and we were like, let's just add something else in here, and it was so easy to just drop in and out. And like back in the day when I was recording in other studios, it was like you had to get the whole thing from start to finish in one go. And like our songs are never that hard, but I wasn't a great guitarist, but it was just more like it's so much pressure that like you get to the last like chorus and you make a tiny mistake, and he goes, "Oh, we'll just go for a take again." I'm like, why? And that's just the handy part of it, is just being able to like drop in and out. Obviously you don't want to be doing it, I'm sure,
like if you can play the whole thing, great, because like it just means you're well rehearsed. But like when it comes to, like you said, we were writing this as we go in some ways. It's good to be able to punch in and out where you need to, and again, it just means there's less stress. Like the least stress is on you, the better performance we're going to get. And like the whole point of recording is to capture a performance, and you want to capture the best. So, it's not cheating doing that. It's just, it's the way it is, I suppose. You're just trying to give the best product you can.
I think I used to always be like, oh no, like we can't have 3 guitars there. There's only 2 guitarists in the band.
Yeah.
That's like, and then I just look back on any of the Blink albums, and I always go back to them because it was just like they have 1 guitar. So I'm like, these sound huge because there's like probably 100 tracks on just guitar or whatever.
Totally. And I mean, like that's one of the downfalls I find with a lot of like younger coming up bands, is they don't realize that they can do that. And I mean, fair enough, it's not going to sound the same live, but you want to give the best product you can, and to do that you have to kind of make, not sacrifices, but like you have to give a bit more than what you have, because you've got all these tools available to you, so why not use them?
I think it's a cool thing to have, almost like you've got your studio sound or your album sound, and then you've got like your live sound. It's if every band was, you might as well just press play if you want to sound as good as on the studio, and just have a backing track.
And I mean, as well with having backing tracks, that's a thing more and more so now. So like, you're not limited to not sounding like you do in the studio.
Yeah. Could you even, I suppose, just play the bass and drums and see what that kind of sounds like together? Get a little bit of drum and bass going. I think it's gas when you take away the guitars. They almost sound like more of like I'm gonna say a punk band as opposed to more in the pop punk, but like a early Green Day or like almost Less Than Jake or something, with just bass and drums, just especially at that kind of D beat or whatever. It just
it's like a typical pop punk verse, like.
Yeah. Cool. I guess like the bass, is not really much else going on after that. It's just
there's really little. The bass guitar just sounds really good on its own. Okay, I've got, so this is like tape saturation. So the way things used to be is you would record to tape, but tape has a sound to it, and when you push it past the level that it goes, it gives you this warm kind of fuzzy sounding things that humans like. So that's the only extra thing that's happening, I suppose. But I think I've got that happening on every single bus down here.
Okay.
Yeah, so everything's getting like that, I don't know, that warm fuzzy sound, I suppose.
Do you think that's almost like a trend thing as well? Like in 5 years, will that be like, oh, let's go back to just clean pop, or is it something that's always
I
been around?
definitely think that it's definitely really popular right now. But the thing is, it's always been popular. So, like, we went through a phase of trying to have everything super, super clean. And now we've gone back to kind of the dirty sound. So I'm wondering if we'll go back to the clean.
Hmm.
But I feel like right now we're in like a middle ground of that. It's kind of, I don't know, it's a nice spot, I think.
And do you let that influence, I suppose, when you're recording bands or even writing your own songs? Do you let that kind of whatever's happening, like even subconsciously or just a little bit in the background of your head going, okay, I need to be writing this way? Or is it something that you try to fight against? I know for me, like, I don't fight against it in terms of like when I'm writing a song, but for me, every verse has to be slightly different, or chorus, even just adding something in. And I guess most bands do that now, so it's not a new thing. But I I don't like this whole. Well, not that I don't like it. I just, for me, I write a song and I write a song how I write the song. I don't want it to be under 3 minutes. I don't want it to start with a chorus just because that's what everyone needs to hear these days. But would you let that influence you? I know there's probably 700 questions in there, but if you could just peel it back and
I think like I think you just do what comes out, and then I mean I don't know. I don't think it really matters. Especially right now with the likes of Spotify, I feel like I almost feel like verses are nearly dying. Like they're getting so short because people are trying to get to the chorus as quick as possible. But also, bridges don't really happen much anymore either. So
and that's even coming up on like Blink songs as well, not just the like hip hop, pop, rap kind of stuff. Like, I don't know. I think it's cool. And like, I get it. And especially from me, from like a video marketing kind of side where like, you want that 15-second Instagram story, TikTok soundbite that is going to like be remembered and memorable and just stick in people's heads. But I just, I used to always have a problem writing the second verse. So if verses go, I don't care. But it's just, yeah, I think when I was reading that Jesse Cannon book, Processing Creativity, I think he just says, I'm like, I think I almost, what I was kind of originally going back to, just fight against it and just will write the song that I want to write. And that's what.
yeah, exactly. And I mean, back to your question about like the structure and things like that. Like, I don't think I let it influence me. I think I would prefer, like, me personally, I do like structure, but I would pick kind of the flow of the song over the structure any day because, you know, you might have a song that sounds absolutely class in this weird wobbly um, structure, but as soon as you try to structure it, it might not fit the same as it did. So, like for example, with Problem, the chorus comes in the first bit, like it's straight into the chorus, and then it goes verse, chorus, bridge, chorus. There's no second verse. There's only the first verse, which is interesting. But yeah, I don't really let it influence me. Like I said, I'd prefer it to flow the way it should flow rather than kind of put you in a box.
Yeah, and I'm even thinking of the Steady song Battle Scars. There's no chorus in that at all. It's just,
Yeah, no, there isn't. No,
it's just verse, second verse, bridge. And like, it's still one of my favorite songs that we've wrote, and I can't wait to re-record it with you. But it's one of those things. And if that song had a chorus, and if like when I was writing, if Jack Turner said we need to put a chorus in here, I don't know how it could 100% sound
yeah,
better.
it could work, but like it sounds right. Like the way the song goes. Because to be honest, even playing it live, I don't notice that there's no chorus in it.
I think, like, again, not comparing it to NoFX in any way, but I know like NoFX on, I think it was maybe Chris from Less Than Jake's podcast where he like breaks down songs with them. I think he talks about maybe Linoleum, which is like probably their biggest song. And again, there's no chorus in that. It's just like, yeah, and again, as you said, you don't notice it until you actually like sit back. And
yeah,
even talking about it now might ruin the song for you, but it works. So
yeah, no, exactly. Like whatever works is it. Like
cool. So we've got 4 guitars, technically, or 5. I can see clean, acoustic, lead, octave, and rhythm.
So again, these are just stacks, but inside the rhythms, a lot going on. Yeah, I suppose I'll just play the rhythms on their own. So we did double tracking, or actually we did quad tracking on like a lot of it. So you've got quads on the main chorus bits, I'm pretty sure. Yeah. And then the verses is just double tracks. And the reason for that is because I wanted the chorus to sound bigger than the verses. So there's generally with kind of songwriting a kind of push-pull kind of a feeling, I suppose, that you're trying to encapsulate.
And I suppose let it breathe in certain spots to make the other parts sound bigger. Okay.
Because you can't have it going 90 the whole time, you know, like you have
then
to,
sounds
take
90, I
things
guess.
away. Yeah, exactly. So yeah, we did quad tracking on there. I'll just play a little bit of it there.
I think just even that first part you played was cool because, again, going back to what we were saying, if I think when we recorded this the first time in a different studio, I didn't have time or I didn't have the no, not that I was uncomfortable. I've like recorded with him loads of times and it was more just, I didn't have the balls to step in and be like, oh, do you mind if I just set up 2 more tracks and just add this extra guitar that's just strumming down?
Yeah.
It's not needed. No one cares about it. But then when it's not there, it does sound emptier. So I think just being able to see that is so cool. And like those 4 there, are they at the very start? Are they all the exact same or were any of them octaves?
I think they might be, but I'll just double check. Yeah, so I think there's a higher one and a lower one. Pretty sure. Yeah.
And even with that, when it comes to tracking guitars, like how much would you be in the side of letting one person not have to track, but like tracking the whole thing? Because like they say, like one person's obviously always going to be that much tighter with themselves.
But I just think that I don't think when it comes to double tracking, I don't think it makes a massive difference. But I definitely think like there's a lot of bands that, like for example, like they might have 2 guitarists, but one guitarist just might be a little bit tighter, and it's not that you're saying the other guitarist is shit. It's just that for the sake of the product, just suck it up and let the better guitarist do it, or so on.
I think that's one thing that like ego can always get in the way of, especially when it's like if someone wrote the song and someone's just better at playing it for the studio or for the as you said the sake of the song. I know with Versive, like I think I've tracked bass on like the earlier stuff. On the last EP I didn't track any bass, and it was just more to the point that I was like, you know what, it's easier. Connor wrote all the songs, he can get it done, or he can get someone to do it better. I'm just cool with that. The song sounds cool, I know how to play it.
You definitely, I feel like it's, I do remember being younger and being like, oh no, the drums have to be real drums, and I want to be the drummer on the drums, and it's just like, that's cool, but if the MIDI drums are going to sound better than your home recording of drums, I'd just go with that. Like I said, it is ego.
And what about just for double tracking or quad tracking? Would you say you should always, or not always, but would you be in favor of maybe swapping up guitar to get different tones, or like different wood can obviously make in pickups?
Yeah, like I think the best way to view that kind of stuff is each guitar is a crayon, and it's just another color in your palette. If you've got a Telecaster, it's going to sound slightly different than a I don't know, Strat or something. The different colors. Now, like I'm pretty sure with these, now I can't tell because we recorded them on Kempers. Pretty sure each of these so these 2 will have a different amp to that one. Now it might not be massively different, but there'll be a slight difference. I'm also pretty sure the EQ on the ones below might be different to the ones on the top. Now I can't check because they're frozen, but
could you even explain why? And this is something that I couldn't get my head around. I know in theory a little bit when you've said it before, but just anyone listen, like why you wouldn't just track once and then copy and paste and drag it down to have it doubled up, because I used to think like from video editing, oh, if you want to have it doubled, you want it perfect in time. But with this, it's different, isn't it? You want
So the reason why is because of phase. So if you have two of the exact same waves happening at the same time, they double in volume, or cancel each other out. When you have a wave that's going up at the same time as a wave that's going up, the two of them interact with each other. So it's just going to sound really thin. It's going to sound just not as nice. But when you double track this, the same thing, but actually physically play it, you've got tiny variations in start times of the wave going up and the wave coming down. Now again, you might have slight little bits of them interacting with each other, but not half as many. Plus, if you do two separate tracks, your ears can't really separate that, if that makes sense. So it's going to sound wider, especially because you can see here that we've got a left and a right. Just makes the guitar sound super wide, super beefy, I suppose.
Have you ever, excluding myself, obviously, found a guitarist that was almost like so tight with himself that like it almost sounded like it was phasing, or is it's never gonna? It's just like even if they're like almost a machine.
Nah, I think like I'm sure there's someone out there that's done that. I've never come across it, but
Yeah, could you imagine being told to play a bit sloppier there?
yeah, that'd be so funny. Now there's like rumors that like when Freddie Mercury would like double his vocals, that he was doing that, but I don't know if that's true or not. To be honest, I doubt it because you're never gonna get it the exact same every single time. You're always gonna have really slight differences in time. Time, loudness, they're all tiny little details that really add up.
So rhythm wise, we looked at the intro and the verse there. I guess even just jumping into the chorus, as you said, that's the kind of quad tracking.
Yeah. So the chorus. I'm sure that's the chorus. Let's see. Oh yeah. So you can hear there that there's these kind of this here. So we added this other guitar underneath these kind of chugs. I don't know. I feel like it just filled out that little space nicely. There's no reason for any of this stuff. It's just more kind of like, oh, that might be cool, and you try it. Yeah, exactly.
And I guess like from the other side, like you go by as Ciaran Nevin producer. I think I've talked about this to you before. The world of recording nowadays compared to big budgets back in the day, and just the role that I suppose you and others kind of go under, it's like you're almost like a producer, engineer,
mixer, it's really master. Blended. Yeah. I mean, mastering and mixing is still kind of separate. There are mix engineers that will master as well. Like, I think the reason why I go by producer mainly is because I don't yet consider myself a mix engineer, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
I feel like that's something that I don't know, I feel like there's a not even a barrier.
You get that medal after 10 years of it.
Yeah, something like that. Like, I feel like until you've really figured it out, I feel like you should just refer to yourself as a producer.
But I guess the other side, like you're a songwriter in your own way. You obviously write your own songs, but you write for other people. But you play guitar, you play drums as well. So from that point, like, you can really add a lot of stuff as opposed to, and there's nothing wrong with just being an engineer either. But an engineer would be maybe just like even just a brief. What's an engineer's role in?
Yeah, well, there's again, it's all kind of blended now. So originally you had your producer, then you had your sound engineer, you had your mix engineer, mastering engineer. So the engineer is in charge of kind of mic placement, how it's all coming in, The producer is in charge of kind of how it sounds, and then the mix engineer takes it and sets all the levels, the panning, make sure everything's kind of not fighting one another, and then the mastering engineer pretty much brings it. Kind of, it's the last touch, I suppose. It's just the loudness and how it compares to other tracks, I suppose.
With the studio engineer and producer, is the producer kind of telling, like, again, every studio is going to be different, but for the most part, would you say producer's telling them where to put the mics, or is it just so he can get the sound he wants? Or
Yeah, so the producer is in charge of the production. So, you know, they make it sound. Now, a lot of producers are engineers. So, yeah, so like you said, you know, they would be in charge of where the mic is placed, I suppose, and kind of just the overall sound of it.
kind of like, I guess with filming, it would be like a director, producer,
Yeah,
whatever, camera operator and gaff. And yeah,
yeah.
okay.
There's definitely a lot of kind of links, I suppose, but yeah, like it's, and a lot of producers as well will actually come from. I mean, it's not as common, I suppose, but a lot of producers will come from like A&R.
Okay.
So, for example, they would work for a label to try get the sound that that label goes for. You know, or I should say, labels go working with specific producers. You know.
Is there any producers, obviously, that you follow now, or like that kind of got you really into this side of stuff?
A lot of people don't like him, but I love John Feldman. I like Zach Savini, who is also off of John Feldman. I
And
think
what's the reason against Chan Feldman? Just like, I've always kind of obviously loved Goldfinger growing up, and like just cool to see that he'd brought up bands like Mest and The Used and even Ashley Simpson, and like now working with massive pop artists, but also like the biggest names in the pop punk and kind of
yeah,
emo
it's
world.
crazy. I think I don't really understand the hate for him, but I think it's just about preference. So I
Yeah.
really like clean recordings. Like I like polished things, and I feel like he really encapsulates what I like things to sound like. But I can understand, especially coming from like a punk kind of side, that you wouldn't like that, you know, because it's not raw enough. It's not. It doesn't sound real in some ways. Like there's a lot of kind of pitch correction. There's a lot of time aligning. There's a lot of a lot of things that go into it. It's he does it really precisely, and that's just what I like about him. Yeah.
Cool. I guess, do you want to throw in a few of the other guitars on top of that?
Yeah.
See what we're kind of, even if you don't mind, even just soloing just the guitars for a minute and seeing what
Yeah, cool. What I'll do is I'll go through the octaves and the leads, and then I'll put all the guitars together and play those. So this is octaves. So you can see there's a lot of octaves.
I was about to say, as your role as producer, does it ever get to a point that you turn around and say, or do you just let the songwriter or musician do their thing and then you?
Even when you kind of had these small ideas that you wanted to add, I'd rather you add them than not, if that makes sense. Because if there's an idea that you want to go back to, because I can always put them in or take them out. In Logic, you've got a hide feature, so if you hit H, you can pick what tracks you want to hide from the thing, which is so handy because it means that I don't have to have everything there.
Does that free up CPU or RAM or anything as well, or is it just?
I'm not 100% sure. I don't think so because it's still there, but it's not. You can't see it. It just cleans up your session a little bit. But it just means that, like, for example, if you add a part that you're not sure you want to keep in it, I can still have it there without deleting it,
Cool.
Yeah, so anyway, there's a lot of octaves, but what I was going to say was that I really like octaves. I feel like it doesn't sound like a track, or it doesn't sound like a song to me if there's no octaves. I don't know what it is. Every song that I write has just so many octaves in it, and there might be like a normal octave, and then I'll go like super high down the end. I'm sure there's some in here somewhere, but
I feel like that's probably, again, from my songwriting, just from playing Blink songs the whole time. Like, you got your low E, then you got your high, and then you just layering and layering it.
Yeah, keep layering, stack the layers. Yeah, I'll just play some of these now. So this is the start ones.
That's gas. I don't even remember doing that.
You don't remember playing it?
No, and it's one of those things that like now that I've seen that like soloed, I'm gonna hear that more on the thing again. But I think it's also a cool thing.
Everything adds up to make the final thing. Like,
Yeah,
I feel like if I take these out, like you will miss them, but they're not like a really obvious
prominent.
thing.
Yeah.
And yeah,
I think the cool thing as well, just going back to at the very start when we started talking about like being able to open Logic yourself as well. I have this session file from you. I can open this up and like if I can't remember how I played the lead because we wrote
yeah,
it
you
on the
can find
night,
them.
I can listen back and just solo that and practice along to it or tweak it or whatever if I wanted for a
Yeah,
different version. It's just so cool to be able to just see all that and hear it and just kind of I think that's the main reason I want to do this little session breakdown is because I remember adding and adding and adding and like I know it's all in there, but like it's hard sometimes to hear it when there's so much going on that it's cool to just hear them soloed and be able to kind of see what the reasoning behind bringing it
yeah.
up or making that a prominent feature. And like I know from singing in bands and you being a singer and songwriter that it's all about vocals, especially like in the poppier side of pop punk or whatever.
Oh
It's
yeah,
about
totally.
the vocal melody. And if you have an amazing lead that takes away from that vocal melody, then it's not an amazing lead. It's just it's a cool riff on its own, but it's not
Yeah,
a good part of the song.
uh, music in general. I don't think like when you're going through sessions like this, you realize that there's a lot of kind of give and take, I suppose. Like you kind of have to sacrifice certain things for the good of it. So, like for example, you were saying there might be a class lead, but if that clashes with the vocal too much, it's not worth having too far there. And like you can only boost it so far before the
Takes
listener
away.
can't hear the vocal anymore.
Quick question, even do you remember how obviously despite tracking roughly how long you would have spent on going through this, cleaning it up, mixing, anything like that? Like, is it just timeless
Um,
because you kind of come in at different times and different days? And
yeah, I think I prefer to. I mean, this is how you should do it. I've been a lot better over the last couple of years with making sure everything is ready to be mixed. Whereas before that, I was very bad at just diving into it and mixing as you're editing. Whereas now I split everything up into a process. So it's editing or recording, editing, mixing, and whatever, so on, mastering, so on. I just think the closer you can get it to finish before you start mixing, the easier it is. With this, I actually spent quite some time on it because I was excited to be working on pop punk for once, I suppose. So I was a bit more meticulous than I probably should have been.
thankfully, you don't charge by the hour.
Like I think if I was to go back and do it again, I'm sure I could find things that I've learned since doing this that I would like to change. But from when I was doing it, I was actually pretty happy with it. Again, just from messing around, you just pick up one tiny new thing, and each time you're just gonna like keep getting better and better.
I think that's the great thing about video, graphic design, music, recording, anything. It's just always about trying to get that little bit better. I always
Yeah,
hate when I see or hear people saying, "Oh, they're at the best they are." It's just like you should
yeah, no,
always
it
like
doesn't
just
work like that.
something better each time. Like even if it's
Yeah,
like even if the better thing is just being able to do it quicker. Um,
yeah, yeah.
and what about ear fatigue? Does that happen much? Like, would you go give yourself breaks
Um,
every?
yeah, like I am constantly in and out of this room. I'm not going to be mixing for hours and hours. I might be recording for hours and hours, which can get kind of tough because you lose kind of your perspective. But what I generally do is, especially when it comes to mixing, I'll mix this for probably half an hour to 40 minutes, something like that. And then I'll try leave the room. I'll take a break or something, and then I'll come back and I'll listen to the reference mix again just to make sure I'm constantly going back and forth to the reference because that is your perspective. If you're aiming towards if you're aiming towards that track, then that's your perspective of where you want to take it, I suppose.
And you constantly get lost in the mix and you have to kind of go back and work on stuff. Like, do you have multiple versions saved, or how does that?
Yeah, I have multiple versions of this. So like what you'll find is you'll be doing them, you'll be doing some work on it. Now I save kind of alternatives every time I do something big. So for example, when I was doing all the edits, I would make an alternative once I was done all the edits, just to make sure I can go back to that raw state. And then once I do kind of all the drums, I'll do an alternative just to make sure that I can go back each time.
I do that with video edits now, because back in the day when I started, I used to have a shitty 2 GB RAM iMac and it would crash all the time and I'd lose an hour or 2 hours work. So now it's just, especially with Premiere files, like the actual file is like less than a megabyte, it's a couple of kilobytes or 100 kilobytes. So like if I'm working on a video, I'd start, say, maybe version 2 or 3 at the start of the day, and by like 2 or 3 hours into it, I have like 10 versions. And it's just because I grew up on shitty equipment that it means that I'm just covering myself. Premiere has autosave and you can go back and find stuff, but it's just one of those things that, like, it happened before I lost work. This is my workaround now, and I've never touch wood, never lost too much time on myself recently enough now. And I think it's just one of those things, like in terms of just from the nerdier side again, what would this file size be roughly for the whole session?
I can tell you somewhere.
Probably
I want to say it's about 2 3 gigs, yeah.
Okay.
So but even you were saying there, and I'm sure you get this, do you even notice yourself hitting Command S anymore? You just do it.
No, yeah, it's just a habit. Like, it's just
you just like, you don't even feel yourself doing it.
Yeah. And with that then, sorry, just my question going back to the nerdier side, every time you create a variation, is that a variation and it's just a Logic file, or is it the whole project again and like another 2 gigs saved somewhere else?
So with Logic, you have these things called alternatives, or session alternatives. So you have a master file of the whole thing, but then inside that file there's other bits going on. So you've got a folder with all your audio in it, you've got a folder with all your alternatives in it. Now they're all using the same audio file, but they just might be slightly different.
It's just linked to it differently or whatever.
Yeah, they're all linked in certain ways, but I think it adds more to it, but not an awful lot, because you're not actually copying stuff. It's just saving the way it's processed or something like that. Yeah. And
that's all contained in one package, isn't it? Like.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure. To be honest, I haven't looked too deep into it.
Cool.
But yeah, I'm nearly 100% sure. Yeah.
I asked too many questions. Don't worry.
It makes me question what I know.
But I think that's again just going back to Jack. He rings me sometimes about doing video edits, and like he's asking me questions. I'm like, geez, I didn't know that. But then I go, oh, I actually did know how to do that without Premiere in front of me. And it's like, it's just one of those things that like I constantly question myself as a video editor or just even creative. Yeah. But when people ask you the questions and you can kind of answer them, even if like you get slight bits wrong, that's fine. But if you can do that, you're like, I actually do know what I do for a living.
And I mean, like, especially when it comes to video and audio, stuff's changing all the time. The things are changing all the time. Like, for example, I might think that a certain way I do something right now is like the only way I'll ever do it for the rest of my life, but it's not true. Like we were saying, each time I do a mix, something new comes up, or I learn one small thing. Like you were saying, you hate the people who are like, oh yeah, I'm a master at this or whatever. I don't think you ever hit that stage when it comes to something either creative or kind of, like that. I'm sure you can become a master at, like, I don't know, symbol making and things like that. But I feel like with audio and video,
it's always just changing. New technology, trends, as we were talking about. It's just the fun of it, I think.
Yeah, like there is the fundamentals, and like fair enough, you might know them so well, but I don't think you'll ever fully master it, I suppose, unless you're like crystallogy or something.
Yeah, I was about to say, or even going to the John Veltman kind of side of things. Like, I know some people wouldn't say it, but like I grew up listening to his bands and the music he's produced for years, and like, yeah, I feel like he's mastered that thing. But in his head, he mightn't feel that.
Yeah, and I'm sure he's still learning in some ways. And if anything, he's giving all the knowledge he currently has to all these others like Saxavini and stuff like that.
Yeah, passing the torch. Leads wise, what do we have there? I kind of always find this weird. Like from playing guitar in most of the bands I've ever played guitar, apart from no, actually I didn't play guitar in my very first band. All the bands I played in, there's always been two guitars or two guitarists.
Yeah.
And with my band Storyboard and Autosort, my friend Kiefer, we both wrote 50 of the songs or whatever. We'd both be kind of writing leads, but they're also kind of rhythm. There's just like a rhythm lead and a lead. And I kind of tend to find that
I always find it hard to differentiate with that. So like some of the octaves might be under the octave section, but they might actually be leads, you know?
Yeah. And that's one thing that I kind of tend to find that it's like, I'd consider probably myself the lead guitarist in Steady because I do pretty much play all the leads. But at the same time, like some of the stuff that Jack writes or I write, it's kind of technically maybe a lead. Like in the intro thing, there's kind of, I call them two leads. One's just a lower lead. I don't know where I was going with that, but that's just where that's.
Oh yeah, no, I get what you mean.
There.
I do the exact same, but yeah, I'll just play some of the leads in it.
Because even that one, that's like the lower version in my head. That's the lead I play live, whereas Jack plays like this higher one. That's
yeah. Actually, I can't remember. Do you know if there is a higher one or?
There definitely is. It's probably buried in there somewhere, or maybe put up in the octaves. The chorus one, it's this little riff. It's one of my little favorite ones I wrote. It's like so.
This one down here is
easy. I think no, sorry, the one just after that. And it's so easy, but it just looks cool to play on my fingers.
Yeah. I know what you're about.
But I actually listened back to the demo version of this or the previous recorded in the studio version, and the lead's a little bit different, which is gas. Not the kind of fingery, I don't even know what to call it. Like I call it the little step thing, but the part before that, and it's just so funny that I just made a different one. I suppose play it because I like hearing it so.
Like even there when we're talking about like, you know, little things that change, I can't tell. Are you humming along with that?
Now?
Yeah, a second ago.
No.
Okay, so there's like
it could be coming back from my speakers to my mic, but I don't know.
Possibly. But like there's like almost too much low end in there. Like I can hear there's like a rumble.
I was gonna say I can hear like a rhythm guitar, or it's probably just me throwing in another fucking octave.
No, there is a second. There is that, which I don't know why it's in the lead, but yeah, like this for me anyway. There's like I would have scooped it like just a little bit more now, but you live and you learn. Yeah. That I do like the lead on that. It's really cool. I like, again, like we were saying, it doesn't clash with the vocal. It's got its own thing going on.
And like that was one of the first things on the very first mix you sent us back, that while writing and recording this song, we put in too much in the choruses, and I loved it. But when I was coming back to it, I was like, because we had the lead vocal, which has both myself and Jack and harmonies, and the lead guitar and the rhythm guitar.
Yeah, there was a lot going on.
Yeah, but then we also added in the chants, which sounded cool. But when there's too much, and that's why we kind of, I think they still are in the second chorus. I can't remember, but we moved them up to the bridge anyway, and that's where they actually can breathe and actually sounded really cool. But what's this other part in the lead there? Oh, that's the kind of stabby,
these ones
kind of
here,
picky, yeah, the kind of stabby little picky riff.
So these are, yeah. Once again, showing that you only had to do it once.
Yeah, it was. We did that purposely, so the left side had a little bit more breathing room, and the right hand on the bottom layer was to prove that I couldn't play it as one riff. But also, to be honest, like, and this is going back to going to studios, I would have felt like I had to get that in one go, but some of those notes actually drag out over the other one, and I notice I do that with all my homecoming stuff. So I'm gonna start recording soon. I purposely let riffs ring out over the next thing, so I get a chance to record myself twice without feeling like a dick in the studio.
Yeah, no, exactly. Like I don't know. I find like that happens a lot more with vocals anyway. But
Going like
I
A
don't
B,
know
or sorry,
why.
A C B kind of D, like, or whatever you
Yeah, well,
you
like you'll
record.
do the lines in separate tracks because I don't know. Like sometimes certain words sound better flowed over the top, and I don't know why I'm gravitating towards them, but I feel like the story so far do that like quite a lot.
Okay, but also I'd
Um,
say he has to do it for his like the breathing.
yeah,
He sings so high and like
yeah,
constantly as well. It's like
yeah.
where, and but he also fucking pulls it off live. To be fair to him,
Yeah, no, he's so solid. Like, um,
so
yeah.
solid,
So
man.
that's the leads anyway, or at least some of them. You guys added some acoustic just to like break up the last chorus and the bridge.
And
Or is
Jack's
this the
ghost
bridge?
piano. Jack's ghost piano got hidden. Don't let him watch this.
What? No, it's there.
I'm only messing. It just looks, it's great. Oh, because you
Yeah.
showed like,
So yeah, Jack did like his ghost piano. Yeah, you recorded some acoustics. They sound nice. The only thing that's quite annoying is I can hear the clicks.
and you know
Um,
what that is? I remember saying it to Jack because, and this is me having a go at Jack. I could hear a little bit as well. His headphones, he had one open so he could hear his guitar, but because the
yeah,
headphone was a little bit open, it was bleeding through. But you know what? Like normally, and on certain recording, I think if this was like, I'm going back to Homecoming, so if it was like acoustic Homecoming thing, that would wreck my head because it's like
yeah.
all acoustics. Whereas with this, you don't really hear
It
it on the
splits it
full thing
up,
anyway because there's vocals
but
and there's all
also
the
there's
piano.
so many vocals in there. It kind of covers it up a little bit. Um,
But I also
like
like it as well.
that's
Like if I listen back to that
yeah,
Reckless Abandon by Blink, you can hear them talking at the start of the
yeah,
on
yeah.
solo on the left. And I'm like, that's it's kind of cool. It's just if anyone picks it out and
Yeah, well, like it's always the things that um aren't supposed to be there that always kind of sound cool. Like I think I remember you saying before, like all the tracks that you used to like the fact that they kind of had what's the word? Not problems, but um,
indiscrepancies.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's the
Just something
indiscrepancies
different
that
about it.
make
Yeah.
it. Yeah, that was literally the phrase you used. I'm pretty sure, but like it just makes them sound a little bit more real and less kind of. And I mean, yeah, I really like my clean, polished stuff, but it is nice when there is little things like that, I suppose.
So this was those three acoustics. There's two both playing rhythm, and then
Um,
Jack was doing like a little lead one in the middle one. Is it?
yeah, is the
It's
I'll
gas.
pay
That one sounds
you
like
a
the
thank
neck
you.
deep. I'll pay you, and then the one in the middle, I think, sounds like the MGK. That's what he kept saying.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah, they're the acoustics. These ones, I don't think they're being used because I think
okay, I think
these
we
are
did
similar
variations.
to
Yeah.
that. Yeah, it's just same. But then we get on to Jack's Magical Ghost Piano. Um, so just I don't know. Jack likes to add little things, and sometimes
Normally
they
I
work.
say
And
no, and then we actually realize that it does work.
yeah, I mean it's nice. I
That
think as
sounds
well I've
like
got
by itself.
and on that I actually have oh god, what is it called? Um,
It doesn't help that I made you do this, by the way, when we're recording this. It's nearly 1 o'clock.
oh no, that's totally cool. I've got on the V. That's right.
1 a.m.,
it's
not p.m.
it's you that should be worried. But anyway, yeah, on this we use this like plugin. It's just for like vibe, I suppose. But it just makes the piano sound I don't know crappy, but in a cool way. It's kind of wobbly and old, whereas it didn't sound like that before. But yeah, that's where we're at there. And then after that, we have a big tom hit. I'm pretty sure. Um, yeah. So
Oh.
yeah. So down here, the little riser and the thing we were talking about earlier, the sub drop. That's when they hit. It just makes that last chorus punch just that little bit more, especially when it rises, because your brain starts expecting something big, and then it's just like
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
I think I remember Seb Barlow. I was watching him doing stuff ages ago, and he was talking in a video about the choruses, or at least the part that he really wants to slap. He like has that louder for like, I don't know, a second, or come in louder,
Yeah.
just to give off that impact. And that's definitely, as you're saying, it like
Fade
builds
down.
up for that. What's the clean guitars? I don't remember doing much clean guitar in this, apart from I would have assumed it was the acoustic.
So that was the last bit. So
Oh yeah, that just that chord. I guess yeah,
um,
if you don't mind just throwing the other three guitars together on maybe just on a chorus, just to hear just how they sound together.
yeah, I'll play all the guitars. Um, and that's where the bling.
I guess even just when I saw you do that, the buses just really do help make things
Yeah, because it means
minimized
that
so easy.
yeah, I can just come down here rather than going through each individual track and clicking solo. I can just take all three of these, pop them off on, and I can bring in and out. But also the main reason for these is I can do automation within the one track rather than doing automation on each individual.
Cool.
Yeah, anything. I'll play the chorus on the guitars, I suppose, just to.
There goes light number 2.
Yeah.
I look like I've got a tan now.
I really like that kind of tom thing Alan did. It was really cool.
Yeah, and especially when Jack's vocal over that. I remember we actually gonna get onto vocals
Yeah,
now.
that was so last minute, like kind of. Oh yeah, just try that. It's cool.
Yeah, because obviously we recorded this song before. Recording sounded cool, but we were just, I don't know, we'd probably only been a band a couple of months, and
I think you just wanted like 2022 eyes it.
Yeah, and also just like I know that we are better musicians and better singers over the last few years, myself and Jack. I've definitely just gotten better at it, and I thought it'd be cool to re-record this. And like we kept pretty much the same things, a few little bits, especially on the second verse. I remember we added some cool little bits on like the production for the guitars, and we added in some extra leads, obviously. But I just thought Jack's been doing his rap kind of other project, JJA, for a while. It'd be cool to just try something on, and he went down.
Yeah.
I think just started straight away, and we're like, yeah, that's what it needs. He just tweaked some lyrics or found some a voice note, I think, or no, not a voice note, like a notes on his app.
Yeah, he had notes from
songs that weren't used before. Yeah, and he just said it, did some spoken
and
word,
it worked.
and it just worked. Yeah, I guess go into the vocals. We don't have to go through them as much because I've already eaten up too much of your time. But just to see kind of what is all behind it, because I know there's quite a lot. There's more obviously on Erase Me, as I said, and hopefully we'll do another one of these.
Yeah, I think definitely like with this, there's a lot less kind of things that you would, I don't know, like a lot of the time when we're doing stuff, kind of, what's the word, experimenting and kind of adding these small little details. There's not as much on this track because it didn't need them most of the time. Obviously, you've got these kind of like risers and little things like that. But there's not a crazy amount of like big things, you know. Yeah, there's the percussion and extra octaves. But I think definitely the difference between the original one and this is that you've got just more and it's filling up a bit more.
Because I don't think, and again, it wasn't down to the previous studio or anything. It was just down to lack of time and experience. We would have just done our vocals and probably not even doubled up on them. Probably like.
Yeah, probably not.
And I would have done a take, and if part of that take isn't perfect, the rest of it sounded good enough that we would have gone, yep, that'll do. Because we at the start, I think I wanted to be a little bit more on the, I'm going to say punkier side of pop punk, but now I'm kind of a bit more on like, let's get it like the John Feldman, just that little bit cleaner, and just get our best takes as opposed to trying to sound cool.
Yeah, I get you. Cool. Yeah, so we've got lead vocals, so there's all these Jack vocals.
And do you remember? I think we did. Did we just use the SM7B on everything?
Yeah, use SM7B on all the vocals. Can't remember. Did I do some more with Jack later
I don't think on this. I think that was just Erase Me, but maybe.
Yeah. Yeah. I'll just play some of this, I suppose.
I walk past your house tonight, but you're not home. House tonight, but you're
Whoops.
That's the remix. Save that for later.
Yeah. So, yeah, what we did was at the start of it, I suppose, we didn't double up until kind of second half of the first verse, I suppose. Again, it's that whole push-pull thing that we were trying to do. Your vocals were doubled, just to kind of wrap around Jack's center one. And then obviously when we wanted the track to get bigger, which I'm pretty sure all the drums come in on that second half, we needed more to like push it through. Yeah, I'll play. Yeah, all the vocals don't seem to be going to the vocal bus. So let's check.
I just love hearing the vocal bus, as if it's like
The vocal bus.
a 184 just sitting there waiting for everyone to hop on.
I think I got. Okay, there, that's fixed. Yeah, so I'll just play it.
at your house tonight, but you're not home. I'm dying just to see you and tell you everything, like how I bet since you moved days.
You can kind of hear that it all kind of explodes out. So like it's the single vocal, and then these two just like it just I don't know. It adds so much more impact. Like I'll play again.
Just to see you and tell you everything, like how I bet since you moved days. Won't you?
Yeah, and that is actually when the drums come in. Like I said.
Tell you everything, like how I bet since you moved days.
Yeah, I'll play the chorus, I suppose. So the chorus has, let me see, we've got a center lead vocal, a left and a right lead vocal, but then I think we actually quad tracked the lefts and rights.
Just sick of staring at the walls tonight, trying to find some distance, and that you ever even think of me.
So I actually think these two here, they're actually harmonies that I made from the original vocal.
I was about to say, and I normally can't hear them, but now that I can hear how much they add to it. Like,
yeah.
Just sick of staring at the walls tonight, trying to find some distance, and that you ever even think of me.
Now, they're not the most like, they don't sound right when they're soloed, but they're
Alvin
just
and the
there as like a
Chipmunks.
background thing. Yeah. And they're just there as like a little background thing. Because obviously we only had so much time. Obviously we didn't have to push ourselves and like pressure ourselves.
But it also probably was down to the first time me and Jack have been singing this kind of loud.
Yeah, there was that as well. But also I just felt like it needed something else there, and that was obviously what I thought at the time was what should be there.
So with those, I'm looking and I can see 3.1 is a duplicate of the second one there. Like you've obviously just
these two.
copied that and made the harmony from that.
Yeah.
Okay.
And again, because like we were talking about with the time discrepancies and stuff, it's not absolutely perfect. But it works okay because we're changing things about it.
And I guess there's just so much going on in that chorus with my vocals and the lead as well.
Yeah, exactly. Like there is still like plenty more happening. So we've got your harmonies and Jack's harmonies. Like
Jack's harmonies as well. Wow.
So sick of staring at the walls tonight, trying to find some distance, and that you ever even think of me. But when you come
It's also
and
cool to see that, like, I obviously tracked the whole thing, but when it came down to finding breathing
took out
room or any
certain
bits,
parts.
you just cut out bits to also make his line better. Or
I think it's less so to do with making his better. I think it's all down to that push pull kind of thing. Certain things come out and your ears go, "Oh, where did that go?" You might not
yes.
necessarily know it, but when it comes back in, there's almost like a relaxed feeling. It's like, "Oh, there it is," you know.
And also, I
So
think
yeah,
going back to our two lead guitarists, in that sense, like, I've always trying to have, like, I just hate playing boring chords for the most part, but I obviously understand that they're needed. But so I'll always try to have like a harmony and a riff. But with the same with our vocals, both me and Jack, Jack's definitely in my head the lead vocalist because he just has the higher range and it kills me.
yeah, I totally
Um,
get it.
but I also sing like I sing so loud more so than like high. I can my range is whatever it is, but like I sing loud and high too. And certain songs I'll do a bit more lead vocal than Jack, but just because I'm singing more on it. But I
Yeah,
think with me and Jack, it's so hard to know. And you've seen it when we were trying to practice acoustic harmonies or anything. We both just go for the same note every
same
time, and
here.
we
Yeah,
just it trips the other one up because then the other one's like, "Do I go lower? Do I even go higher?"
it's like a game.
Yeah, and then it's like,
Constantly trying to outdo each other. Like,
yeah, who's gonna castrate the other one first and lose their ball so they can hit that really high note? But no, I think that's the kind of fun thing about me and Jack is like we can both sing low to a certain point and both sing high and within
yeah,
obviously the range of the song. And it is one of the things that I love because when we do acoustic sets, they sound so different to things. And like when me and Jack both started, he was playing Dream State, I was doing probably Homecomings or something, and that was both acoustic, sadder, slower emo. And we said we want to do a fast pop punk band again where we sing high. And then
yeah.
Steady ended up being a slow acoustic emo thing for years because we didn't have a drummer and
Yeah,
bassist. And I think it's cool that we have that side that we can. I think for the most part, the Steady songs work full band and acoustic.
yeah,
Um,
yeah. So I'll show you that first thing.
Really messed me up this time. I'm broke beyond repair. Empty promises and photographs mean nothing to me now. So I'm writing down a list of what I can never say to you. I hope it finds you well.
The verse is cool. I think there's like little bits happening constantly.
yeah, and
Like you
again,
can
like
see
you
like
can
this big gap there, big gap here, everything happening in one go, so on.
Yeah, and there's a lot of me singing higher on that, which I kind of think is cool because Jack kind of took the
Yeah.
higher lead on the first verse, whereas he's singing a little bit lower, still high enough range, but just it's cool.
Yeah,
Um,
no, it's cool.
you're obviously a singer, so like, where would that kind of come in with you? Would you try like say if you didn't like the lyrics we were singing, would that be something that you'd at least say, okay, I think this could be changed, or is that kind of where you take a back step, or
So sorry again with the lyrics and stuff.
yeah, or just even like melody or anything? Like, would you? I
Like
don't.
I would definitely consider myself stronger with melody than I am with lyrics. Um, but I do find like sometimes if you have a really good melody, the lyrics tend not to matter as much. I really do like when lyrics work, really well and are like well thought out and make a loads of sense. But there's so many songs that you listen to that actually don't make any sense, but they're just catchy.
Yeah.
I'm very much into like catchiness, I suppose. Um,
And that's it. I think growing up, I was like just mad into catchiness from like that kind of phrase of just I don't know, like Spice Girls and
yeah, yeah.
like even
Like
like the Paris
I
Hilton
was always a
songs.
pop kid.
Yeah.
I didn't really get into the rock and pop punk stuff till I was like 13, 14, 15, something like that.
Okay.
Um, but like I was fairly late as far as you know discovering that stuff goes. But just like there is so much like that ties in with each other. I mean, it is pop punk, like there is that element of pop to it, which I suppose that's what kind of enticed me to it. It was just a grittier version of what I was already listening to in
Yeah,
some
like if you
ways.
look back on like Taylor Swift or Katy Perry songs, if you
Yeah,
just put the distortion behind them and like heavier drums,
yeah,
they basically are the same pop punk songs that like Newfound Glory or anything like that are just
yeah.
bashing out. What about I know on down on the bridge part where Jack's doing his little kind of spoken poetry, there's the cool chants thing that I guess that they don't really get heard too much in the chorus because there's so much
Yeah.
going on. Maybe just solo those
See,
and
I can play, then
Oh yeah, yeah.
seems to be some weird shit happening. But
I wish I tried harder. Then I wouldn't be left here with all this pain. Getting these shocks of anxiety every time I hear these names. These streets I walk past, playing games and tricks inside my brain.
yeah, yours are working for some reason, but Jack's don't seem to be. And I've sent them out to a different bus, but I'll try send them out to yours and see.
So sick of staring at the wall. And did you ever care at all? That you were never there at all. Still trying to find some way to distance. And did you ever care at all? That you were never there at all.
Yeah, I think that was when me and Jack were doing acoustic versions of these songs ages ago. We were like, we need to add backing parts, and we started singing that, and then Jack almost wanted it to be the main chorus
It
melody.
does sound good as a main chorus.
It
to be
does,
fair.
yeah.
Like, I remember we nearly switched it out. I remember you considering that.
Yeah, and then I
But
just
I do
thought,
like the one you picked.
I think this one just adds nice in the background. It's so cool to hear it on its own as well for me, just because like I don't remember Jack doing the harmonies. I remember me doing the shouts and like blowing my voice out almost.
Yeah.
But I think it sounds so cool there, and it's like it's nice that like hopefully people now, if they listen back, if they watch this, first of all, it's probably fucking nearly 3
You can
hours.
hear it slightly,
Hear that then back in the thing, yeah. If you just play that again with maybe the spoken wordy thing, if you could, then I think that's pretty much.
I wish I tried harder. Then I wouldn't be left here with all this pain. Getting these shocks of anxiety every time I hear these names. These streets I walk past, playing games and tricks inside my brain. Reminding me of memories, the distance I made. It all feels the same. It's time I start over.
Yeah, no, like it's super cool. I think what, like you said, hopefully people who hear it now will hear that bit, because I remember there was like we couldn't decide whether to bring it up further or push it back a bit, but I am glad with where it is sitting because it's not super obvious, but also it doesn't distract.
Yeah, I don't think it was gonna be in the bridge. And when
Yeah,
we were
no,
like,
I don't think
oh,
it
we'll
was.
get it out of the choruses, and then we're like, let's just throw it in there, and it does. And like for me, live, I can sing that part now.
Yeah,
Well, Jack's
yeah,
doing his thing, and I just step away from the mic, kind of give it that vibe. I guess the last
I
bit
think
vocally,
I think I remember I was singing that bit at Whelan's, but my mic wasn't on.
yeah, I can't remember what Jack did a few layers on this little acousticy part as well, didn't he, vocally?
I think just the three and then whatever's on the end.
I think he goes
I'll
high
play
or
it.
something.
Yeah, I'll play it.
Start over. If you come home, don't come looking for that same boy, 'cause you won't find him.
Yeah, those were cool. I think the only way I could get those to cut through was by sticking that megaphone effect on it. But again, in context with the whole thing, it really works. Like, I'll play it here.
If you come home, don't come looking for that same boy, 'cause you won't find him.
Yeah, it's so gas just listen to his voice sometimes because he has like a little bit of an English twang when he wants it, because
Yeah,
obviously growing up in
sometimes.
England, but like he's also like more Californian than Tom DeLonge half the time because he
Yeah,
just
he does have the
imitating
pop
that
punk
band.
voice, doesn't
And then sometimes he sounds a bit Galway-ish,
he? Yeah.
or
Yeah,
the
exactly.
Irish, I guess, in that sense. But no, yeah, it's cool. I think vocally wise, that's probably like there's a bit at the end there, but I don't think we need all that.
Yeah, like I think you know, it is nice hearing stuff a cappella. I feel like you know, it just gives another context to the track because it makes you realize all the things you don't really hear.
Yeah, or how much, like, from a point of a non-singer, how much time does go into it,
Yeah,
or how much backing parts are there to fill it out.
yeah, and like I've got to give credit as well. Like a lot of these kind of little things, you know, I didn't really give much thought to them until I started hanging out with Steve, like Steve Easter.
Yeah.
Because you know, he'd break down things for me in the studio, and you know, like even down to just stacks and stacks of harmonies.
Yeah, I think going back to like the time we went to Steve, it really made us sound good. The
Yeah, like
first recordings,
it
as I
really
said,
does.
are cool. I do still like them, and I do like the rawness to them. But it just, I always knew that we could sound better. Hence why we're well, I hope we sound better. But I think we do. But going back and trying to re-record them, and just when we were in the studio with Steve that time, it was no pressure. It was just
Yeah,
you
just
do this,
chill. Like,
and the fact again that he's a vocalist and he listened to the kind of music that we wanted to record made it so much
yeah,
made so much more sense because he'd come up with ideas. He even changed the melody a little bit on crutches, and I remember kind of being like, "Oh no," because it was like it was in our heads, but I
yeah,
can't
you
even
got
remember what the
demo
other one
islands.
was. This one's more memorable, and it just worked better. And like again, harmonies, he made us just feel comfortable and being able to like. I can't come up with harmonies. I just can't do it. When I come up with
Yeah,
a harmony, I just sing it higher or lower.
yeah, no,
It's like
I
it's
do
not
get
a
it.
harmony. It's just a what do you call that? It's like a is it a harmony? But it's not like the
Well, you are harmonizing. I think it's just that, and I think when you're thinking of harmonies, you're thinking more from a music theory perspective of like fifths, thirds, and things like that.
oh, I'm
But
definitely not thinking like that. But
no,
that's
no, but I mean, when you're saying like what you're saying there, you're doing just what sounds right in your head rather than like an actual theoretical
yeah,
harmony.
chords
Do you know what I
building
mean?
it up. Yeah, because
Yeah,
like
and
you'll
that
sing the
works.
harmony
That's what
into
I do.
my you sing the harmony into my ears and say do that. And the
Yeah,
first two, I just keep going to the first one. I've definitely gotten better at it, I think, for being in here because I can kind of separate a bit. But at the beginning, I just sing the exact same thing back time and time again.
yeah,
Um,
no. I think as well, like Jack does that quite often, where he'll make up a harmony, and then when he's going to do the double of it, he's completely forgotten what he's done.
yeah, and that's the importance of just recording, isn't it? Like just
Yeah,
doing
and
it.
I mean, like, I can totally understand that because especially when you're trying to make up harmonies on the spot, you
Mm,
haven't been practicing them. That's why a lot of like, so for example, like Andrew Wade when he was doing the neck deep stuff, he didn't get Ben to do any harmonies whatsoever, as far as I'm aware, anyway. He made harmonies off of the original vocals for every
okay,
single thing off of what was it, Life's Not Out
that's
to
not
Get
that
You?
sketchy, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. And
Um,
what else is there? Is there anything else? Like I know, even just touching on the Steve side of things, I know he started adding in some cool like synths and stuff, and I know Jack was like, I think the songs sound great with him, but Jack was like mad for all that
yeah,
sort of stuff
I
on our
think
new
like
stuff. But I
I
feel
think
like
it's
there's so
hard
much going
to.
on this.
I was gonna say, like, yeah, I could have tried to squeeze all those things into it, but I don't think they would have. Maybe they would have helped it. Maybe we just didn't find the right one.
Hmm.
But I feel like when you're just squishing things for the sake of squishing things, it's whatever.
And especially as you were
Every,
saying, we would have had to write it on the spot, and we would have been tired, and we
yeah,
just would have we just would have put stuff
sure.
that
We were going to what 5 a.m.,
some of the
4 a.m.
days, yeah,
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 um, yeah. Like I think um, considering the way we recorded it, um, how much time we had and things like that. I think like it turned out really good, and like I learned a lot from it, and I'm sure you guys did too.
definitely. Yeah,
And
like
I
you can
think
even
as
see
well,
that when
everything we learned from this, we really pushed over to the next one, which I'm excited to do the breakdown for that because that one's really cool.
yeah, and again, if anyone does watch this, it's not going to be as long as this because I will trim back my questions, but also kind of just getting you to kind of give your background as well. Um,
Yeah,
but I also just remembered that with this song, we also recorded all the or half the music for Puppets
yeah,
that same night. So that's why we were going so
yeah,
long, or
we
that
did. Yeah.
same 2 day session or whatever. So
Oh yeah, we smashed out like so
a
much
song
in
and a
that,
half, yeah.
that
And
two
that's why
days.
with
Yeah.
Erase Me, I think the next single, there is a lot more time focus on vocals because we just spent that whole day just doing
Yeah,
Erase Me.
because we did aim to do two, but we focused so hard on that
Yeah.
because I don't know, something just ticked with that track that was like, okay, we've got to focus
Yeah, you definitely
on that.
captured the emotion, especially in Jack's
Yeah,
vocals. You get like you can hear it, but you definitely captured that compared to like the previous recording of that. Like this the other recording is so cool, but this one I think is just yeah, sounds great.
yeah.
Um,
There's something new about that one as well.
anything else? I guess. I don't know. I think that's kind of a good enough wrap up
Yeah, without
on a
going into
short
like
little thing.
yeah, without going into like plugins and things like that. There's not a lot going on. Like I spent I spent a good amount of time like tuning the vocals, time aligning drums,
Not
and
too long on the tuning though, yeah.
no, no, no,
I'm
no,
messing.
no.
Well,
To be
yeah, auto,
fair,
yeah,
no, I
auto
really
tune,
did.
auto tune. What, like did you feed us auto tune coming into our ears a little bit?
I can't remember exactly, but like generally, what I'll do is I'll like tighten it up manually, um, to a fairly closely natural kind of thing. But then I will put like a touch of auto tune on top of that, just to kind of just tighten it up that one tiny bit more.
And
That
do you use auto tune or what's the other kind of harmona or something?
so I've started using the
Melodyne?
Slate one.
Okay.
It's called Metatune, but I do have the Antares auto tune. I also have
There's another one with
Waves.
M, isn't there?
Hmm?
There's another one beginning with M or something, is there?
Uh, there's you mean Metatune? This one.
No, I feel like or Melodyne or something.
Oh yeah, no, Melodyne is a it's not an auto tuner, but it's a pitch correction. It's
Ah,
pretty
okay.
much
What's the difference between pitch correction and auto tune?
uh, pitch correction
We'll save
is
that for a different day.
pitch correction is these little lines here,
Okay.
wherever they are. Yeah, these. So you can manually adjust them, whereas auto tune will you'll tell it what key the song is in, and it pretty much just automatically drag each side wherever it's going.
Okay.
Like you'll see this move around, so you'll see these, so it'll push it directly into the tuning it's supposed to
And
be
you
in.
can give it the amount like so you don't go too late.
Yeah, exactly.
And if you look at my vocals there, I didn't need any.
But like I said, like I won't put it. Now I was really bad for it when I first started. Like I put everything to like 0, but now I like try to listen to where it would go naturally. So for example, that's like that's not bang on. Whereas like if I put this to 0, you can see like all the kind of humanness of it is completely gone. Like it's totally whatever. Now, not saying I am perfect at it still, but I'm a lot better than I used to be. Yeah.
Cool.
I think that's pretty much all of it. Is there any specific spot you want to look
No,
at?
I think I was gonna say we could play the song through, but I can just put that on at the very end just so it doesn't
Yeah, that's a
crash.
good idea.
I have the demo versions that I might even throw in little bits of.
Okay.
Actually, I might even show you that one. I don't want to keep you much longer because I know I've kept you up, and it looks like we've been on for so long that I've got a suntan now because my lights have gone off. But we have been on for long, so I might share my screen and just show you just one or two of these. Before I do that, is there anything I guess like you have a love for pop punk and kind of nearly all genres of music, but is there anything that you'd be excited to work on or anyone that you're working with at the minute that you looking forward to putting out or
Yeah, no, I'd love to work with more pop punk, I suppose. I really like working with drums mainly. Just I don't know, I feel like a lot of sound engineers are drummers. That seems to be the case. But yeah, anything with drums. I'd love to do some I don't know. I'd love to do some more kind of metal, but when I say metal, I mean more in terms of like Architects kind of Bring Me the Horizon kind of stuff, like a lot more modern production. And again, just back to my love for just like really clean things. A lot of modern metal is like ultra clean, like it's so tight. Everything is time aligned, tuned, all that kind of stuff. Like I'm a big fan of like the whole Joey Sturgis kind of stuff.
so would you you do a bit of obviously drum tracking or you like drums on other people's songs? Is that something that you'd like to do more of or is it
Yeah, no, definitely. I any chance to play drums, I'd love to do it.
don't tell me
Whenever
that
I
because
can do.
I've already tried rope you into playing drums for homecomings
Yeah.
or every other band that I play in.
Yeah, no, like any opportunity to play drums, I jump on it because like I don't get to play as much as I used to. And like I was saying earlier, like when I went to college to do like performance and stuff, I was mainly focused on drums. And through that, I actually started recording my own drums just to do like covers and stuff, and that's where the obsession with like making the drums sound good came from. But yeah, literally any opportunity to play drums, I hop on it because I don't get to play as much. And at that time, anyway, like that's the one thing I can look back on and go, I was fucking good at that. But I've kind of lost it now. It's one of those things you either use it or lose it. But
I feel like it can
but
come back
again,
to
like
a
you were
muscle,
talking
isn't it?
about, yeah, but you were talking about with like college and stuff. Like it was because I was going to college, playing for 8 hours, going home, playing for 3 hours,
Yeah.
and every single day for 7 days a week, you know. And that's why. And I think the same with mixing and stuff. If you're not just constantly doing it, like this is all I do. I come downstairs in the morning, I'll sit at the computer and I might watch a YouTube video, but I'm never watching entertainment things. I'm always watching tutorials or like
Learning.
trying to learn something new. Yeah, this is just my entire life, you know.
And what about songwriting? I know obviously it happens when you're recording people. Would you ever have you ever, or would you be interested in just sitting down and writing songs with people and not even recording them, or does that kind of go hand in hand? Would you want to be like on both sides of it?
Well, I'd really love to. Like, I've been playing with the idea more and more in my head of doing like writing camps, like getting a bunch of people together, going to like, I don't know, a cabin somewhere, and just like doing writing camps and just writing songs for the purpose of giving them to other artists and things like that. I think that would be really cool to do, especially because you never know what's going to come out of it, especially from like, just everyone has different influences and different ideas, and it's interesting to hear what comes out of, a bunch of people onto one thing,
Also, I'll come film it and make a horror movie because people in a cabin in the woods is definitely
cabin in the woods with a song.
Yeah. Or did you see that? I actually haven't seen it yet, but my wife's mad about horror. The Foo Fighters movie that was like.
Oh no, I haven't seen that.
I haven't watched it either yet, and I don't know if I want to now with the whole Taylor kind of.
Yeah.
Watching it, but yeah, I must stick it on. Cool. I don't want to keep up too much more of your time, but I'm just gonna see if I can find these old versions, see if they play through my thing. I'll share my screen.
Yeah, we would never change. 'cause you